Welcome back to our channel where we present updates and concealed tales about royal family. We are happy to offer the following news: Meghan and Harry's secret astrology meeting, exposed Diana comparisons, stun royal watchers. A recent social media disclosure made by celebrity astrologer Angela Pearl has brought to the attention of the general public a private encounter that took place between the astrologer and the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. A snapshot of the three of them smiling together was released by Pearl, along with an image of a handwritten thank you card that was rumored to have been penned by the couple. An intimate photograph and a brief handwritten statement have become the focal point of a discussion that connects private spirituality, royal history, public image management, and the couple's continuous negotiation of life after stepping back from top royal duties. These two things have been a focus point for discussion. Commentators and observers were quick to draw parallels with the documented consultations that the late Princess Diana had with psychics and astrologers. This prompted renewed reflection on historical continuities, possible motivations behind the engagement of the Sussexes with esoteric practices, and the broader cultural implications of a high-profile royal association with astrology during the event in question. The issue was sparked by a post on Angela Pearl's Instagram account that included a snapshot of a missive on paper, carrying personal letterhead, and a portrait that appeared to be taken in a casual setting. In the picture, Prince Harry and Meghan are photographed standing next to Pearl, all three of them smiling in what appears to be a friendly and purposeful gesture. The caption placed on Pearl's photo said, "I am still in awe of this extraordinary evening. Thank you, Prince Harry and Meghan, for the warm invitation and inspiring conversation." The phrasing "warm invitation and inspiring conversation" suggests the meeting was not a fleeting encounter at a public event, but rather the result of a private arrangement, a deliberately convened evening meant for substantive exchange. The connection is framed as personal and reciprocal rather than merely performative as a result of the implication of intention and hospitality. As far as casual onlookers and fans are concerned, the second picture that Pearl provided appears to be a note that was written by hand in Meghan's signature script. The piece that is viewable contains the following statement: "Dear Angela, we wanted to thank you for joining us. Your energy and insight were a welcome addition." A portion of the note is obscured by an item laid over the paper, leaving parts out of view. Nonetheless, the visible lines include an expression of concern. "We hope your family in Ukraine remains safe, and we look forward to staying in touch, especially as we look to visit Australia again." The note is signed with formal titles Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, and Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. Taken together, the photograph and the note indicate a meeting that carried personal warmth, an apparent exchange of perspectives, and a conversational tone that touched on intimate concerns, family safety, public-facing plans, potential travel, and references to Pearl's professional qualities, energy and insight. The phrase energy and insight is terminology that is commonly associated with spiritual counseling, which includes astrology, psychic readings, and other forms of intuitive assistance. As a result, many readers inferred that the conversation entailed a professional consultation of the kind that Pearl offers. The application of titles on the note, as well as Pearl's public framing of the event, both contributed to the strengthening of this assumption. A geopolitical element was added into the conversation when Pearl's relatives in Ukraine was mentioned. This demonstrated empathy and an awareness of world events during a discussion that in other circumstances might have appeared to be about private problems. The phrase evoked the memory of the Sussexes' highly praised 2018 royal tour of Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, and Tonga, which is frequently cited as a high point in their public life. Meanwhile, the note's reference to a possible visit to Australia prompted speculation about the couple's travel plans and their ongoing engagement with international audiences. Many observers found the phrase to be reminiscent of the tour. The followers who are following the couple's arc of public participation would consequently have symbolic resonance if they were to take a journey to Australia in the future, even if it were a private excursion. Princess Diana's well-documented consultations with psychics, astrologers, and spiritual healers during the years following her separation and divorce from the then Prince of Wales were linked to the claimed meeting between the Sussexes and Pearl. This comparison was made by a prevailing stream of opinion. Diana is described in both biographical accounts and contemporaneous reporting as seeking solace and guidance from advisors, who provided psychic readings, astrological charts, and various forms of spiritual healing. During the time that Diana was under tremendous public scrutiny and personal hardship, these sessions are frequently described as being a part of her search for agency comfort and emotional support when she was going through these experiences. Many stories depict Diana's access to esoteric experts as an ongoing source of private guidance, which was another instrument she used to cope with a position in which her options seemed confined by institutional and public constraints. Diana's appeal to these advisors was not only characterized as a casual curiosity. This historical precedent is instructive because it shows a trend that is easily recognizable during times of turmoil. Members of the royal household have occasionally sought solace from sources other than established religious institutions. This has occurred quite recently, at least in the most recent decades. Astrologers and psychics who later spoke publicly about their contacts with Diana were among the well-known individuals who were a part of Diana's inner circle. Other royals have also been associated to alternative spiritual practitioners. In the 1990s, for instance, it was widely reported that Sarah, Duchess of York, had sought the advice of psychics and astrologers. This was a topic that was heavily covered by the tabloid press and frequently included into wider narratives about how royal ladies dealt with personal challenges. While some commentators view these consultations as evidence of vulnerability and a departure from the stoicism that has traditionally been expected of royals, others view them as understandable human responses to extraordinary pressure and pragmatic attempts to find comfort or direction through whatever resources felt available. Different commentators have different interpretations of these episodes. From the perspective of this historical line, the encounter between the Duke and Duchess of Sussex and an astrologer can be interpreted as a part of a lineage of royal nonconformity. Numerous observers believe that their involvement with astrology is a manifestation of the same drive that once compelled Diana to seek the advice of a spiritual guide. It is a shift toward the pursuit of meaning that extends beyond the formal institutions of the monarchy. Some people believe that putting one's faith in astrologers or psychics might lead to the development of non-evidentiary reasoning or conclusions that are not well informed, because it elevates intuition above advice that is established in actual evidence. Defenders, on the other hand, highlight the fact that astrological consultations frequently function on a different register as heuristic devices for self-reflection and narrative framing rather than as deterministic forecasts. Taking this viewpoint into consideration, astrology can be a conversational tool that is comparable to coaching or reflective therapy. It can provide metaphors, suggestions, or interpretative frames that assist an individual in processing complex emotions and gaining clarity regarding their objectives. Following the publication of the Pearl piece, these contrasting interpretations have been seen across the landscape of the media. As a result of the disclosure, opinion writers and cultural critics used it to practice larger arguments about reason and superstition. Lifestyle journalists position the episode within the larger mainstreaming of wellness and alternative spirituality, and users of social media generated reactions that range from amusement to scorn through empathy. A current cultural divide is shown by the variety of responses. While some people view it as charlatanry or recreational superstition, others accept it as serious therapeutic or spiritual activity. The discussion also demonstrates how a single image can serve as a mirror, reflecting previous beliefs about spirituality, stardom, and the public responsibility of renowned persons with regard to these topics. In addition, the snapshot sparked a discussion about fashion, demonstrating how even private moments may be swiftly distorted by the scrutiny of public image and style. The photograph shows Meghan wearing a Chanel dress that is boucle style and is black and white in color. The use of boucle, which is a type of yarn that has loops or curls and gives the fabric a textured and slightly nubby appearance, is a distinctive aspect of Chanel's clothing collections. As a result of the dress's seeming voluminous form, which featured a waist that was softer and less structured, numerous comments were made regarding the dress's fit and proportion. It was argued by critics that the cut did not flatter the figure of the Duchess, with the argument being that Meghan's preference is typically for more tailored pieces that had defined waistlines. The defenders of high fashion said that the fashion industry typically prioritizes the experimentation of silhouettes and the individuality of the brand over the traditional concepts of flattering tailoring. Therefore, wearing an item like this might be interpreted as an intentional reference to fashion history and brand identification, rather than merely a sartorial blunder. Chanel in particular includes design signifiers that communicate a distinct aesthetic and cultural capital. These signifiers include tweed-structured coats and famous trims. It was highlighted by observers that the Chanel dress may be recognized by readers because it had already been seen in Meghan's public wardrobe. This was most notably in her August 2022 cover shoot for The Cut, which included an in-depth profile and photo series at her house in Montecito. Within the framework of that publication, the dress had been styled and photographed in order to emphasize specific design aspects and pose compositions. This can make it difficult to see how a garment appears when it is worn in natural everyday settings. A more ordinary view of the dress was provided by the latest image with Pearl, which brought to light aspects of the dress's shape and fit and reignited debates about the significance of re-wearing items that were previously linked with significant occasions in the media. As a recurrent topic of discussion in the realm of celebrity fashion economics, the reuse of clothing is becoming increasingly prevalent. There are interpretive questions that arise when a dress that has previously been seen in a high-profile magazine or public presentation is worn again, especially when public celebrities recycle pricey designer pieces rather than purchasing new clothes for each appearance. Some people consider the practice to be an ethical position because it promotes sustainability and resists the disposability of fast fashion. There are many who question the optics re-wearing is still considered a luxury that is primarily accessible to individuals who have access to high-end wardrobes. Additionally, the recurrent use of specific designer pieces can be perceived as strategic communication, which is a manner of indicating continuity, taste, and brand alignment. In the case of the Sussexes, the garments that they wore during the months around 2022 were closely connected to a specific era in their mediated existence. This phase included a series of interviews, a documentary that was shown on Netflix in December 2022, and the publication of Prince Harry's book Spare in January 2023. It is therefore possible to allow readings that relate present appearances to historical moments of narrative significance by wearing garments from that era. This can be done either as a conscious evocation, as a nostalgic callback, or simply as familiarity in personal wardrobe choices. Discussing the sartorial economics of celebrities is a topic that is closely related to the fashion dimension. In the case of wealthy public personalities, the decision to re-wear designer garments might be interpreted as either a sustainable practice or a luxury activity that is concealed behind language about sustainability. The fact that labels, silhouettes, and accessories all carry social signals is another aspect that is brought to light by this article. Fashion functions as a communication tool for elites. Meaning is inferred from such signifiers by both critics and lovers alike, which adds another dimension to the discussion regarding how the encounter with Pearl has been perceived. As a result of the official tie that exists between the British monarchy and the Church of England, the meeting is open to examination within the context of a theological and constitutional framework. This is in addition to the consideration of style and historical precedents. The reigning sovereign holds the title Supreme Governor of the Church of England, a designation that dates back to the English Reformation under Henry VIII. That constitutional link produces an implicit expectation that members of the royal family, particularly those close to the line of succession, will publicly align with Christian doctrine and participate in the rituals of the established church. In the course of history, the monarchy has been a particular embodiment of a particular fusion of national ritual, religious symbolism, and constitutional function. As a result, deviations from established religious practice can appear incongruous to observers who place an emphasis on continuity and institutional symbolism. When it comes to astrology and divination, the majority of mainstream Christian theological traditions, especially those linked with the Church of England, have always had a skeptical attitude toward these practices. It is common for theological arguments to revolve around issues regarding providence and the role of human agency. For example, if it is believed that celestial powers are responsible for determining human fate, this could be interpreted as being in tension with the teaching of a sovereign God and responsible moral action. Both the Old and New Testaments contain passages of Scripture that warn against seeking supernatural knowledge or advice from sources other than God. Theologians reference these passages to support their position that practices that claim predictive authority should be approached with caution. Consequently, the public relationship with astrology by members of a family whose head is the nominal leader of an established Christian church can be perceived as problematic by observers who adopt a more traditionalist or conservative perspective. When it comes to the Sussexes, these religious issues are rendered more problematic by the personal choices that the couple has previously taken toward themselves. According to reports, Meghan went through a private baptism and confirmation into the Church of England prior to her wedding in 2018. This process is said to have featured symbolic components such as holy water from the River Jordan. Over the course of the coming years, she was frequently seen wearing a little cross bracelet, which was a conspicuous symbol that many people took as a statement of her Christian denomination. The encounter with an astrologer was viewed by some religious critics as being in conflict with the commitments that were indicated by her baptism and other public markers of religion. This was due to the presence of the aforementioned biographical background. In this sense, critics contend that such exchanges run the risk of trivializing religious fidelity or undermining consistency with the religious responsibilities of institutions. A different interpretation, on the other hand, places contemporary spiritual activity in the context of being pluralistic and syncretic rather than mutually exclusive concepts. An increasing number of people are constructing their own personal meaning systems by incorporating aspects from a variety of religious and spiritual traditions. An interest in astrology does not always signify a rejection of Christianity according to this point of view. Rather, it may serve as a supplementary or metaphorical resource for introspection. Those who advocate for this pluralistic viewpoint assert that a significant number of Christians, including prominent members of the public, discover ways to include symbolic activities like as astrology into their more comprehensive spiritual lives that are oriented on fundamental religious beliefs. This framing is consistent with broader social trends, which are as follows. Younger generations in many Western cultures report lower levels of institutional religiosity, but increased levels of individualized spiritual practice, which includes meditation, mindfulness, and various forms of intuitive spirituality. These kinds of developments make it more difficult to conform to prescriptive expectations for the appearance of public religion in an era characterized by spiritual eclecticism. There are cultural and generational fault lines that overlap with the religious discourse that is taking place regarding the encounter between the Sussexes and Pearl. There are several wellness-oriented sites that show natal charts and horoscopes as tools for self-reflection. Astrology has become more widespread as a result of books, podcasts, social media, and commercial apps. Today, the customer of the astrologer includes people from a variety of demographics who in the past would not have utilized services of this kind. Because the Sussexes are public people who have made mental health and wellness a priority in their public work, it is possible that they will come under scrutiny when their private interactions reflect the cultural currents that are prevalent in the world. There is also a substantial aspect of the episode that pertains to public relations and narrative craftsmanship. As a result of the highly mediated self-presentation of the couple, which includes interviews, movies, memoirs, and carefully controlled social media private behaviors, are frequently interpreted as components of a wider narrative effort. Throughout his writings and interviews, Prince Harry has made it clear that he maintains a strong emotional connection to his mother. He outlines his attempts to retain links with loved ones who have passed away in his book Spare, as well as in other public pronouncements. These endeavors include consultations with mediums and experiences of sensing presence. The manner in which exchanges with spiritual advisors are viewed is influenced by these personal disclosures. These disclosures can be interpreted as coping methods as components of grief work, or less charitably as a part of a more developed public persona. An astrological consultation can be seen as part of Prince Harry's lifelong psychological and spiritual progress. These interactions may help the couple cope with grief, understand their identities, and find symbolic language for difficult emotions. The couple's public dependence on spiritual counselors may be a means to justify personal choices by pointing to intimate or imagined assistance, avoiding accountability to living experts in established organizations. This objection is sometimes made. The contact, regardless of the circumstances, becomes part of the relationship story, incorporating private activities into public identity politics. Angela Pearl made the meeting public, making privacy and intent assumptions harder to grasp. Pearl posted photos on social media, making a private meeting public. Advertising this information raises issues of authorization, strategic communication, and third-party experts' participation in celebrity narratives. A photo with the Sussexes can boost reputation and attract new clients for practitioners who work with high-profile clients. Practitioners can also benefit from such associations. An image might convey to clients that they prioritize well-being, spiritual development, and sincerity, or it can strengthen networks of trustworthy advisors. Pearl's upload raises the question of whether the couple anticipated, consented to, or benefited from the notoriety. Some reports about the Sussexes' image protection are more credible than others. This contradicts their reports. According to several reports, the couple has requested that private or semi-private photos be deleted from their official collection. The disparity highlights a lack of consistency in the pair's media interactions, regardless of truth. Allowing an astrologer to publish may indicate a purposeful and decided openness about their brand's priorities, health, spiritual inquiry, and authenticity. Thus, the snapshot is an implied endorsement that boosts the astrologer's profile and reveals the couple's private life. The event also illustrates the mutually beneficial relationship between celebrities and their service providers. For years, celebrity cultural economics has relied on tacit and explicit endorsements. Modern media allows social posts to spread quickly and be reused, boosting the professional's financial and reputational gains. A public figure who is photographed with a professional usually receives social proof. In an influencer-driven market where client proximity is desirable, the Pearl post shows how private patronage and public visibility combine. These encounters reflect modern culture's transformations in power and trust mediation. Micro-celebrities, influencers, and businesses are establishing niche audiences. Religious institutions, universities, and mainstream media coexist with this field. For professionals like Angela Pearl, high-profile clients are a modern credential. The choice of visible advisors may communicate to wealthy celebrities. The public's excitement for alternative advisors could be seen as a mistake or as an imprudent mix of private counseling and public personal branding. The reactions to the meeting, which include historical comparisons to Princess Diana fashion and public image debates, theological concerns about astrology and Christian commitments, and media strategy analyses, show how a single gesture by prominent people can be interpreted in many different ways, some of which are contradictory. Private spiritual counsel is being reflected into announcements about identity continuity and deviation from royal standards at the junction of personal decisions and public iconography. Democracy is also present. The public often uses elite-related occurrences to express anxieties about social change. The monarchy is often used to examine class, national identity, and modernity. The Sussexes' decision to abandon royal obligations and focus on business and media has polarized public opinion. Thus, an astrological visit does more than satisfy curiosity. It becomes a signifier for audiences who see it as proof of previous marital tales. These storylines can represent modern authenticity or a break from decorum. Finally, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's meeting with Angela Pearl is intricate and has far-reaching effects. It was a private chat and hospitality exchange that happened instantly. It also connects the newlyweds to a previous royal trend. Princess Diana sought spiritual advice during emotional distress. Meghan's Chanel dress was the focus of the widely circulated photo, which added spiritual and sartorial meaning. The episode raises difficult considerations about how private spiritual exploration meets monarchy-associated religious obligations. In terms of communications, the astrologer's decision to make the encounter public shows how celebrities' private lives and public narratives blur. This shows how implicit endorsements work in the influencer market. The intensity of the public conversation that followed illuminates a larger reality about contemporary public life. Private meaning-making may be used as symbols in larger disputes about identity, faith, authenticity, and stardom. Whether this meeting will have long-term effects for the Sussexes' public image or the monarchy is unclear. With an evening of chat, a note of gratitude, and possibly a professional relationship, the pair may achieve little. The conference will be used to tell stories of the Sussexes, the monarchy's modernization, and how spiritual traditions and fashion help people cope with sorrow, belonging, and purpose. Analysts and the public will interpret and discuss the effects. The episode ends typical and informative. It is typical because it repeats recognized patterns, privileged people seeking unorthodox assistance during life changes, private activities becoming public meaning-making, and celebrity proximity becoming commodified. It instructs by showing how digital media mixes private and public life. It also shows how spiritual activity on the periphery can become public when led by famous cultural figures. The small social event that raises big questions about how public figures balance private spiritual pursuits with history institution and a curious global audience will continue to be debated by monarchy, celebrity, and contemporary spirituality observers. Debate will continue over the meeting. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts and say goodbye for now.